It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee ready to do it again. Dale, how's everything going in your world these days?
Hey, it's a happy Tuesday, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a happy Tuesday.
It's the Tuesday after the 4th.
That's right. Is it?
Yeah.
The 4th of what?
Football starts next week. SEC Media Days.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
Golf.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that much.
I have no idea about golf.
Well, you don't have to.
I know what a slice is.
yeah. A slice and a hook.
I've seen one of those up close.
Yeah, and a duff.
I think I hit somebody on 84 one day when I was about 18 at the country club in Williamsburg. I think I hit a car.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I tell you what, I put a few out there in Highway 84 myself. But I watched the U.S. Golf to me has always been something that's easy to watch on TV. And on Sunday afternoons, if I ever get still, it's on Sunday afternoons. And I got still this Sunday afternoon. Hadn't done it in a long time. I'm usually busy. But the U.S. Women's Open was being played this weekend, and it was at Pebble Beach for the first time in the history of the event. And it was enjoyable. It was have you ever seen that course? Pictures of that place? It's gorgeous.
Well, I'm just going to bring up history to you.
Come on with it.
You like history?
Yes, sir.
Well, my dad was in 1964 was assigned to the Presidio of Monterey, and Monterey is right next to Pebble Beach and Carmel, and everything is right there. So we would ride by the golf course sometime, and of course, that whole area was beautiful at the time, but the military had a language school there that my dad was assigned to for a year, and so he had to go there for 9 months before we went to Germany. And so I remember Pebble Beach. Do you remember Pebble Beach, Mother?
She's shaking her head.
She's shaking her head.
Well, it was beautiful. It was beautiful to watch it. The tournament there, and let's see here. It's talking about the purse. $11 million is what the purse was this week, and the winner was Allison Corpus. I believe I pronounced that right. She won $2 million.
I hope you pronounced it right.
I did. Well, she's probably not listening. It's spelled C-O-R-P-U-Z.
Let's just call her Allie. You want to just call her Allie?
Allie's good. She won $2 million. That's the biggest purse in the history of women's golf. Well, it's a tie for it because last year Lydia Ko won $2 million at the CME Group Tour Championship. But I just want to tell you, Dale, if you ever got some time, which you probably don't, on a Sunday afternoon, turn your TV on, turn it on to a golf match, get in your favorite chair, and you can open an eye every once in a while. It's kind of like watching a soap opera. You don't ever get too far behind.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I enjoyed that. I think we're going to enjoy our guest tonight. I'm excited about somebody that you've lined up for us.
Hey, I'm really excited. Listen, of all the guests that we've had, I think that these people are going to be really, really entertained because this man has been involved in history at every level.
Man, he has, hasn't he? Tell us about that right quick.
Well, he played for the 1975 Jackson Callaway team, who was one of they had a middle linebacker that played at Southern named Clump Taylor.
Man, a legend. The Nasty Bunch man. Man, he started it, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And then they had a great quarterback, Roy Coleman, that went to Ole Miss and played wide receiver and played baseball. And he played a little quarterback at Ole Miss. And he was probably the first black quarterback at Ole Miss, I would think. And I think they finally ended up moving him to wide receiver some, because I remember against Notre Dame he played wide receiver, and I actually got to see him twice that year in high school. They played Vicksburg both times, and of course they had Tyrone.
Yeah.
And I mean they
this guy's like 6'7", 6'8".
6'7", 8".
Man.
Now he's got roots in Laurel.
Yeah.
And so he was, but he's just such a fine fella. But if you'll listen to him today, and you'll find out who has been in his life to make him like this.
Yeah.
I mean, he had people even that we know in our area here, like Harvey Hull.
Mm-hmm.
Harvey Hull was a mentor of him at Mississippi State. Walter Packer, that played down at Leakesville High School, he was at Mississippi State with him. He was another great mature leader. And then he goes to, and then when he's in high school, he had some great mentors that were involved in his life at a young age, like Bob Hill, who was a longtime coach at Jackson State, was kind of a neighbor of his, and took him in. And then when he gets to the pros, he's got people like Walter Payton taking him under his wings. And Leslie Frazier. Now, a lot of people don't know Leslie, but he's from Columbus, played at Alcorn, played on the Chicago Bears during that time. Was actually NFL coach at one time for the Green Bay Packers, a head coach.
Wow.
And just retired as the defensive coordinator at the Buffalo Bills for the last 5 years. And Buffalo's really come on strong.
Man, they have.
And of course, now he is sitting out a couple of years to kind of recharge the batteries. But listen, this show is about Tyrone, and I'm gonna tell you what, people are gonna really enjoy it.
Well, I tell you what, without further ado, let's get to that. But first, let's take a break, and we'll be back after this word with tonight's guest, Tyrone Keys. See you after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Tyrone Keys. Tyrone, we are so honored to have you here today on our show, and we appreciate you coming on. And of course, we've already introduced you in our first segment about your great career, but I saw you play in high school, and I saw you play in college, and I saw you play on TV in the pros. So I was always a big fan. I saw the great Callaway team play over at Vicksburg around 1975, and I believe it was 75 or 76, and Vicksburg had a little running back named James Yogi Jones. I don't know if you remember. I think Yogi went on and played at State, didn't he?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, man. We never forget all those pursuit drills that we had to do in practice. Make sure we had our angles on him because he was a fantastic running back, man. He can cut it back and take it to the house.
Yes, he was, and I think he had a brief career with the Cowboys after his Mississippi State days.
He played with us at Mississippi State. Just a great class guy. He went on to play for the Cowboys for 5 or 6 years there, and he was Tony Dorsett's backup. But he was mainly he was always in the middle of the pack as far as kickoff returns. He averaged a lot of yards on kickoff returns. He'd always finish in the top 5 there for about 4 or 5 years there.
Well, in high school, I remember the kickoff just being a big old sweep sometimes with those great running backs. Just like a sweep, except you got 10 blockers instead of 2 or 3, you know. Well, listen, going back over your career, and I'm going to let you talk about it in just a second, and I'm going to get off the air here and let you talk, but in high school, you played for one of the probably best high school teams I know that I saw. You had people like yourself, Clump Taylor, the great Roy Coleman that went on to Ole Miss fame, and of course Clump went on that. And I remember you had a big old fullback named Napoleon Gentry that went on to Jackson State and had a great career too. Tell me about your high school days at Jackson Callaway back in the 70s.
Oh yeah, I mean they were just beautiful days because most recently on our 50th, the school 50th anniversary, they invited that 75 championship team back to the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. And one of the things that we did is since we had all met during integration in 71 and 72, because Callaway was a 7th and 8th grade school. And so the 7th and 8th graders went to school with the 11th and 12th graders. So I was there when Bobby Wallace and those guys were in the 12th grade. I was in the 7th grade. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we rode to the we rented a yellow school bus. Taking it back into the day of first year of being bused. And we all got on the bus together, and we all rode over to the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. Mr. Jerome Smith, who was 96 years young, he was there to greet us, and so was a number of the school teachers from that era. It was just a beautiful day. We presented our trophy, and our trophy from the 75 championship team is now in the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame. But that was just a beautiful day, and that was like 4 years ago.
Yes.
And so, yeah, definitely I had and so in 72, Roy Coleman was the middle school quarterback. Coach Bilbrough was the head coach. So when we came back in 75, Coach Bilbrough was brought on as the offensive coordinator. And so we had already been together and knew each other from the 7th grade. And so it was just a no-brainer. We didn't have to pick a quarterback. All of us had, he knew all of us in what positions we should play. And so we just, it was business as usual. It was business as usual. And fantastic team. I tell you one thing that stands out to me, which relates to the other two teams that I played on that was historical great teams, is that my 10th grade year, we lost to Greenwood pretty badly, and we made a commitment during training camp that we were going to come back and win it all. And that was we had that setback against Greenwood, and we went on to win 22 straight games, including a championship. And I think it's been the last championship from a school in Jackson, Mississippi, in 50 years, from what they tell me.
Well, you're talking about that Greenwood team. I got to see them in 74. Hollis Rudder was their coach, and they came down to Laurel and beat Laurel for the Big 8 championship in 74. And then you guys won it the following year, if I'm not correct, in 75. So there were some great football teams, and I think Greenwood had an outstanding team too. I remember they had a wide receiver named Gray that went on to Memphis State and played in the pros for a little bit too.
Oh yes. And yes. He went on to play in the pros, but I would tell you what, we practiced all summer long with. We had a target for them, and because they played. We played them the third game of the year, and Robin Mink was quarterback, who later came to Mississippi State there.
Yeah.
He had a big tight end named John Dickens. I don't know if you remember that guy's name. But anyway, we beat them, and we went on to win 22 straight games. 22 straight games, and then we lost to Greenville my senior year as the last game in the playoffs there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had just a great, wonderful experience at Jackson Callaway.
All right, now you went to Mississippi State, and I mean, y'all didn't have the greatest success that you probably wanted like you did at Callaway, but you played in one of the most historic games in Mississippi State history. Tell us about that ball game.
Well, I would tell you what, on signing day, I never forget that Johnny Cooks calls. And we had met on our recruitment trip, and he called, and basically he and I and a number of the guys, Fred Collins and Glenn Collins, and we were committed to going to Mississippi State. We were talking about going to Mississippi State. I had a love for Mississippi State. I used to go by Memorial Stadium and watch Mississippi State play from I used to peek through the fence. I used to watch the great players like Harvey Hall, Walter Packard, Dennis Johnson, Bruce Threadgill, and those guys. And I just knew I wanted to go to Mississippi State there. And so we had made a commitment to go to Mississippi State. And Johnny called me on signing day, and he said, "What you going to do?" I said, man, I'm going to wait just one more day. He said, no, man, I'm signing today. You know, I thought we were going to go up there and do something special. And so we all signed. We made agreement to sign, and we signed. And we didn't have the greatest success because the team was on probation the first couple of years. But anyway, going into my senior year, we lost to USM. And of course, they beat us like 42-14. And we got up. I never forget. Johnny and I. We went over to meet with Coach Ballard, and we apologized for not having the team ready and for a pathetic performance, being embarrassed at homecoming. And Coach Ballard was saying, "Hey, we have an opportunity to turn this thing around, but it's going to be up to you guys." And so we actually made a commitment. We had that team meeting. The reporters were standing outside waiting for us to come out on Sunday after the meeting. And we said, hey, we made a commitment. We're going to win the rest of our games. And they were like, hey, you got Auburn, you got LSU, you got Alabama. And Johnny was just a very confident guy. He kept saying, we're going to win all of them. We're going to win all of them. And we ran the table throughout that 5-game win streak. 3 of them was goal line stands at the end. People don't know that, but 3 of them was goal line stands. And then, of course, the big game against, to start it off, we went to Miami against Jim Kelly in that group, and we beat them. And then from there, we beat Auburn, LSU, and then we got ready for Alabama. And Coach Ballard said, hey, I'm going to coach the defense this week. And he told us, he said, hey, if you guys listen to me and do everything that I tell you to do this week, we're going to beat them. He said, because I know what I'm doing, because I know how to stop the wishbone, because I invented it. And him telling a group of kids, young boys, young men, we just got chilled. We got chilled, man. And, man, we practiced overtime, making sure everybody knew who had the pitch guy, who had the fullback, who had the quarterback. And then a lot of times we changed it up and showed some stuff that nobody had ever done against them defensively. And so they never crossed the 50-yard line until the end of the game. And but I never forget, before we left the locker room, Johnny, 99, 98, we always were the last ones to leave. And this time, we looked each other in the eye, and we said, this is what we talked about now. This is it. Today is the day. And we bumped this, and we did it. We did it. It was just a great thing. And I never forget, after the game, the first place I went to was my high school coach's house. And he always tells a story. He can see me walking down the street. I said, Coach, we did it. And so that was my sole purpose of going. And we ran the table. And I always tell people, the young kids, the students, that a setback gives you an opportunity for a great, great comeback. And so that was one. And then we had one at Jackson Callaway, too, as well. Because in both cases, we got destroyed. We got destroyed and lost by 25, 30 points. And then we came back and revenged those games, those losses with leaving a historic legacy.
Oh, we talk about history. This is Marshall, and high school level history, collegiate level history, and then we move on to the National Football League. And you were with the Chicago Bears. Were you on the '85 defense?
Yeah, definitely.
Best defense, they say, in the history of the sport.
Well, USA Today named us the best team in the last 100 years. Yep. To celebrate the 100-year anniversary, they named us the best team in the first 100 years of football. Well, and for 1 year, we were.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the thing about it for me, I lived 2 doors down from Coach Bob Hill. Bob Hill was the head coach at Jackson State, who was Walter Payton's coach. And so I was always over at his house. Matter of fact, he allowed me to use his Eldorado Cadillac to go to the prom.
Oh,
my
man.
junior.
I remember those Eldorados from back at that time. That was a smooth looking ride.
Oh yeah. But then I started thinking, man, how am I going to tell this guy I'm not going to Jackson State?
Oh, I imagine it was hard. But now you had but besides that, you had a couple other Mississippians on that team. You had Leslie Frazier, if I'm not mistaken, he played DB for you, and you had a little running back from Columbia.
Yeah.
How was that relationship?
I had met Walter over at Coach Hill's house, and so I remember the draft day. I remember being at Coach Hill's house doing draft day, and I remember them going up to Chicago, and he had a copy of Walter's contract. Never forget, it was $125,000 signing bonus, something like that.
That was some money in the day.
Yeah. But anyway, so a dream came true for me when I had a chance to go to Chicago. Walter took me up on his wings there, and he had a foundation at the time, so I had a chance to just roll with him, and I didn't even know what a foundation was and what philanthropy was, and but he always wanted me to sit with him on the plane, calling me homeboy, sit here and sit down, and he would just share with me, what he was doing with the foundation, what he was doing with his restaurants and things like that. And at that time, I never forget, he was making $800,000, and he shared with me his goal was to be one of the first players to make $1 million. And now, now people make, well, you know what they make now, $20, $30 million a year.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, definitely, it was a dream come true. It was a dream come true. First and foremost, because my favorite team had been Chicago after watching Brian's song.
Oh, wow. Great movie.
Piccolo.
Well,
that's where I want to be.
Well, at each stop that you had, I don't care if it was at Callaway or Mississippi State or with the Bears, the one thing about those 3 teams that I remember is they always had a great linebacker and a great quarterback. Is that the key to winning?
Man, you took the words right out of my mouth. When Clump Taylor hit me up about Johnny, I said, Clump, I was very honored and fortunate to have 3 great linebackers, man, at the highest level. Clump Taylor at Callaway, Johnny Cook at Mississippi State, and Mike Singletary. And then I had the opportunity to play with 2 number 9s, Jim McMahon, and Roy Coleman. And, of course, John Bond was number 13, but they all was definitely strong leaders at the quarterback position and the linebacker position. Those guys were the leaders, and there was no doubt they were the leaders.
Well, tell us right now, we've talked about sports for a thing, but, sports leads you into other ventures. But tell everybody what you're doing now, because I think your work is tremendous. It's awesome.
Well, when I retired from football due to injuries and career-ending injuries, I had a chance to coach with Leslie Frazier. Leslie had just started a startup program up there in Chicago called Trinity College. And I was here in Tampa, and he needed talent. And I was working in a school called Tampa Catholic. And we ended up taking guys up there during the summer for summer camps, and those guys ended up playing for Leslie. Matter of fact, one of the guys met his wife there. They have 6 children, and he too has a foundation. And this was in 1993 that these guys went up there, and Leslie and I was together last week at his daughter's wedding. And so he was sharing with me how he still keep in touch with those guys. And that's how I got started for me, was seeing kids who I knew could play, but they didn't have the opportunity because they were not being recruited. So with the contacts that I had, because a lot of my former teammates were now coaching and players that I played against was coaching, we just kind of began to help kids out. And then the key component was on Saturdays, they all had to volunteer at the Joshua House, which is an orphanage, because I wanted them to see that there was no such thing as free handouts. And that's how I got started. And thousands of kids later, one is now the GM for the Detroit Lions, Brad Holmes. A number of them are coaching and scouting and doctors and lawyers, and they now provide opportunities for kids by giving them airline fare and pay for their books. And now we have this program that's called Father Figures, because we all hear about kids not growing up with fathers and this and that, but once we were mentors and now we become father figures.
Wow.
And it happened because, I would overhear the kids tell me that, Mr. Keys, your former player, he's a father figure to me. And wow, I said, wow, that's interesting, because when I knew them, they were younger,
Right. Right.
Now they all in their 40s and 50s. So it's been beautiful. It's just been a great thing to see people come back and give back and utilize their platform.
I want to ask you, I ask a lot of the folks that we've had on here that have been successes, in the next level in athletics and things, and you certainly fit all those bills. If you were to talk to some high school kids today that are aspiring athletes, what would you tell them? What advice would you give the young folks that are wanting to go to the next level and just say in football? What would you tell them?
Well, I always share the story of Coach Ballard, and matter of fact, he told us when we met with him after that USM game, he said, "Hey, anybody can play football, but how great do you want to be? Do you want to just be just a football player, or do you want to build something and be a great team, a team that will be remembered?" And that's going to take extra hard work. And so I can't be there with you guys when you want to get together and go over on your own team film. I mean, that's up to you all. I can't make you stay after practice, but that's up to you all. And so all of those teams, because of the leadership that we had on the defensive side of the ball, Singletary, for instance, we would all meet hours before practice and hours after practice. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Clump Taylor. We had that 8mm projector, and we all get together on Friday nights. I mean, not Friday nights, but Thursday nights, and go over to a player's house. And just a beautiful thing, because back then, blacks and whites lived in separate neighborhoods, but our teams were so close that we went to everybody's house, and we would just watch film, and the parents would have popcorn and stuff fixed for us, and we watch film. So that's extra time.
Yes,
nothing's going to happen unless you do something extra.
Well, I tell you what, that's a great advice, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Dale and I both do. We're about out of time for this segment, Tyrone. I want to tell you, I've been a fan of yours ever since your days at Mississippi State, and I, as well as Dale, appreciate you so much, what you mean to our state and our communities, and taking time to be with us today. We appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Now, we're going to ask you to hold on just a minute. We're going to sign off to hear just take a commercial break to hear from one of our sponsors, and then Dale and I will be back with tonight's final segment of the Brouhaha after this commercial.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone. As promised, Tyrone Keys was a gentleman and an outstanding interview. I'm a big fan of that guy's. I have been ever since I came in. He came onto my radar, played at Mississippi State, and then of course the '85 Bears. I mean, maybe a member of what some say is the best defense ever set foot on the field. What a great interview, and what he's doing with the youth and the kids. That's good stuff, man.
I mean, it is
good stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you just love to see these guys that probably came up in certain situations in their youth, maybe didn't have a whole lot, but are willing to give back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just phenomenal, you know, and everything.
Well, Dale, you said that I think in our first segment tonight, you're talking about football season. We talked to football player, football season right around the corner. You said we got it. Did you say we practice? Practice is starting. You know, with the high school stuff now. Is that starting? When does that all start?
No, the first official day for the Mississippi high school kids are, I think it's July 31st, a Monday for the public schools, which is and most of them start playing around 17th and 18th of August. Scrimmages, so you're looking about a 5-week period here. But next week's the SEC Media Days in Nashville.
Oh, boy. In Nashville.
Mm-hmm. In Nashville.
I thought they did those over in Hoover.
Well, they did, but they kind of want to switch it around a little bit. So I imagine it's probably going to be in New Orleans and Dallas and places like that before very much longer.
Maybe even in
Houston.
Maybe even in Norman.
I don't think they'll go to Norman.
You don't think so?
No, Dallas is right there.
Yeah.
I mean, they can drive down in 2 hours from Norman to Dallas.
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to Oklahoma now.
Not going to go?
We'll go to Dallas, Houston, Nashville.
But we're not going to Oklahoma.
Hoover, Atlanta.
Forget about it.
Yeah, Tampa. Miami. Key West. That's where we ought to do it.
That's right.
Key West.
Oh,
and Mike Leach's hang out.
We're losing it here. We're on way to Key West.
Yeah, we are.
Well, Dale, it's always a pleasure. I enjoy our time together and the guests that you line up. And we've had a good show. I've really had a good time tonight. But, I want to remind everybody that you can follow us on Facebook at the Brouhaha, and all of the shows, including this one, will be cataloged on our YouTube channel at the Brouhaha. But for now, we've come to this time of show where it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.